Hi there, welcome to another Chaplaincy Updates. So it's the last week of term, can you believe it? It's been a really weird time, and although school has been mostly closed during this time, I think there have been certain life lessons that we can all take away from it. So what are some things that we've learned during lockdown? Well, I just wanted to talk about a few. I wanted to talk about the fact that not all heroes wear capes, that about faith is about more than going to church, that we've learned not to take things for granted and to look after our mental health, and that we've also seen that big change really is possible. So what do I mean when I say that not all heroes wear capes? What I mean is that the pandemic has showed us who really keep society going. Healthcare workers, grocery workers, people who drive buses and trains, often people who are underappreciated and underpaid. They played a pivotal role as key workers, keeping us all healthy and safe during this really difficult time. And we've also seen heroism from people like Captain Tom Moore, who raised so much money for the NHS. And we've seen kindness from people who volunteered, who formed mutual aid groups and made sure that vulnerable people in their community were being looked after. We've seen people coming together to support strangers, neighbours, friends and family. And we can continue this kindness after, now that we're coming out of the strict lockdown into our new normal. We need to remember that the pandemic isn't completely over, and we can continue this kindness by, taking care of things like social distancing and hand washing where appropriate, and remembering that we need to look after other people's health as well as our own. So I think we've also learned that faith is about more than just going to church. Because the thing is, for Catholics, and indeed most Christians, going to church on Sunday and receiving sacraments like the Eucharist is a really big part of our faith. So it's been really strange not being able to do these things. So I know that Catholics, we've had to really rethink what our faith looks like outside of church. And this goes further than just, Zoom and live stream masses. I think one thing that's come out this time is that we've had a renewed appreciation of the Bible. Stereotypically, Catholics aren't great at reading scripture, but without physical in-person services, the Word of God has become all the more important. We've also seen parishes coming together and reaching out to the vulnerable through acts of service, such as befriending and doing shopping and all sorts of things. And this highlights the importance of the fact that faith is more than just services. Faith is about community. And I think also without the routine of going to church on Sunday, people have been forced to think about why their faith matters to them, rather than simply just going to church out of habit. And perhaps when we do start going back to church, we will be going because we genuinely want to grow spiritually, and it's not just something we do out of habit. So during this time, I've also learned more than ever the importance of not taking things for granted. I realised that the small things in life, like going out to eat out, getting my hair cut, hugging my friends when I see them, these small things are actually really big things, and I'll never take them for granted again. I've had a practice for a long time where I kind of try and think of something I'm grateful for each day. And before lockdown, I would never have thought that being able to find a can of tinned tomatoes and some pasta would make it onto my gratitude list. And so I think this time has shown me what's really important and has helped me to not take those simple things for granted. And I think, we kind of talk about mental health a lot, and I'm someone who has experienced mental health problems. So it's something that I've, always worked on, because I've experienced a lot of anxiety and feeling low in the past. But I've also noticed during this time, a lot of people who haven't struggled with their mental health before are struggling perhaps for the first time. I've spoken to a lot of my friends, and everyone has seemed to experience real tiredness and exhaustion, anxiety and worry. And I think a lot of people are struggling with a lack of motivation as well. And I think this just highlights that the fact is we all have mental health. We all have to look after it. And it's only natural that when we're going through something really big, like this lockdown has been, that it's going to affect our mental health as well as our physical health. And so I've definitely learned the importance of all of us really looking after our mental health and taking time to care for ourselves, no matter whether we have an actual mental health problem or whether we're just struggling for the first time. And I think part of taking care of our mental health in this time is accepting the uncertainty, acknowledging the fact that we can't control or predict the future, and that's really hard. The only thing we can do though is to focus on the present and focus on the things that we can control. That means when things feel really overwhelming, it's a good idea to just focus on taking things one day at a time. And the final lesson that I've learned from lockdown is that big change really is possible. Who would have thought at the beginning of this year that all the things that have happened would have happened? Like schools would be shut down, international travel would all but stop completely. We've seen such massive change in our society. And I think that's what this shows us, is that when a problem is seen as urgent enough, and the coronavirus pandemic was a big deal, it was a really urgent crisis. But I think what we've learned is that when we do see problems as being urgent enough, we can make really big changes to our lives to fix them. During this time, we've also seen the Black Lives Matter protests. We've hopefully all become a bit more aware of systemic racism in our society. And I think now is the time to see that as an urgent problem and to be prepared to make changes in our own lives to address it, whether that is, reading around the subject and becoming more aware of it, having difficult conversations when we have to call somebody out, or just, taking a stand against bullying whenever we see it. Hopefully, we've taken to heart the fact that this is a big problem and we all have to go out of our way at least a little bit to stop it. And also, we still have the ongoing problem with the climate crisis, which I'm sure you're all very aware of. And we're all going to have to change the way that we live in order to address it. And the truth is, every person on this earth is made in God's image. And so I think we all just have to do what we can to respect that, whether that is wearing a mask or social distancing to protect everybody's health, even people who are vulnerable or elderly, whether that is, raising awareness and standing up to racism, or being mindful of how our actions affect the planet. I know that I've learned from this time that some problems just can't wait, and we need to act now. So those are my lessons that I've learned from lockdown. I hope you have an awesome summer, and I hope, it's obviously going to be a bit different, but I really hope that you get some rest and you get to see your friends and spend some time outside. And I'm really looking forward to seeing all of you in September. Fingers crossed. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but I'm really hopeful that we'll be able to see all of you very soon. Take care and goodbye.